Hi, welcome to the Take 5 podcast, the show that helps strengthen firefighters in protecting those relationships that matter most. I'm your host, Lee Sullivan, licensed mental health counselor and certified emotionally focused therapist. I'm so glad you're here today. Hi friends in fire service. Today we're dispelling some myths around bad emotion. Since mental health has a long history of stigma within the fire service, emotions tend to get a bad rap. And some of the common myths that I hear among firefighters are painful feelings are always bad, anger is always bad, thoughts or cognitions drive or are in charge of my feelings. So we're going to talk about these today and find the truth within them. Myth number 1, painful feelings are bad. There's a benefit to painful feelings. Painful feelings actually can ground you. So, for example, say someone close to you or someone that you deeply care about dies. Sitting in those painful feelings of sadness and loss can help you reprioritize what's most important to you. It helps provide a sense of grounding of what's important to you in life. When you say something hurtful to your partner, it's not long before that emotionally starts to tug at you. You might feel disconnected from them. And so your primary emotions of hurt and loneliness is sending you a signal. It's signaling to you that your current state is not good and you need to reconcile or reconnect or say you're sorry. So painful feelings do not automatically ground you, however. If you turn away from your feelings or you refuse to feel them, then you're also refusing the messages that they're trying to send to you. So the truth is, whatever amount of pain we allow ourselves to, that is also the amount or the level of joy and happiness that we're going to be able to experience. We do not get to compartmentalize this and decide, I'm going to feel extreme joy and no pain ever. So whatever level of pain or amount you allow yourself to experience, it works on both sides of that same coin. So we cannot have one without the other, because these two emotions, the happiness, joy, and pain, sorrow, loss, they're two sides of the same coin, and they actually work in tandem with one another. Myth number 2, anger is always bad. Anger is a signal that something is wrong. It's trying to tell you something is wrong. It's trying to grab your attention and that you need to take action. And so anger can be a way of protesting being wronged or have an injustice done against you, to you, and it propels you to take action to share your hurt or your offense. So how you respond to your anger really helps determine whether or not it's helpful. If you use your anger as a secondary emotion, as a reactive emotion, then you become out of control and rage. You're actually either pushing others away or turning from others. You're creating disconnection in relationship. And so using anger in this way is not helpful ever. When, however, anger is a primary emotion, it's an adaptive emotion. It's used to propel you towards sharing your story or your experience. This is reaching for connection, wanting someone to understand you. So in that sense, it's using anger as a bridge to connect with another person, and that is quite helpful. So an example of this might be when you feel wronged or an injustice has been done against you, maybe with an intimate partner. Your anger might prompt you to share your experience. Man, I am pissed. I feel that something is totally unfair in our relationship. You're asking me to do this, but I don't experience you as being held to that same standard. And so I want us both to have that expectation. I'm just super angry with you. While you're showing anger, you are still using it to share your experience and connect with another person. Okay, so that use of anger is quite helpful. We cannot fully remove anger from our relationships. That is not a possibility. Anger is a universal emotion experienced by all of us, but it can lead us to open dialogue. And so naming anger when it's happening in the moment can help to contain it so it doesn't become rage, actually. So if you can even say in the moment, in real time, when it's hitting, the wave is hitting you, I am so pissed right now. I'm so angry. I feel such an injustice. I feel so wronged. Right there, you're able to contain the anger and use it to draw someone toward you. So myth number 3, thoughts are in charge of our emotions. There is a mountain of neuroscience suggesting that, or actually proving through fMRI studies, that we feel 1/100th of a second faster than we think or reason. Let me say that again. We feel something 1/100th of a second faster than we think or reason. So an example of this, you're walking through a parking lot, dark parking lot maybe, and out of the corner of your eye, a movement catches your eye. Your heart rate starts to increase, your senses are heightened, you experience increased blood flow to your extremities. This is, your brain takes in a danger signal and prepares your body for fight, flight, or freeze response. You might feel concerned. You might even feel scared, depending on your previous life experiences. Then, 1/100th of a second later, 1/100th of a second later, you identify that it's actually just a leaf blowing through the parking lot. You reason that it's not a threat and you are safe. Your heart rate lowers, your senses re-regulate, your blood flow goes back to baseline, and you receive normal blood flow to other parts of your body as well. The danger signals are no longer present in your brain. So this is just a very practical example where you can understand the neuroscience of it. We feel, and then we think or reason, and after that we act. So emotions actually set up our thinking. Firefighters should be especially thankful for this amazing system. When you are in danger, you don't have time to actually think or reason about it. This is what all drills are based on. The emotions system reads the situation, determines whether or not it's a threat, and then sends signals to the rest of your body for a fight, flight, or freeze response before you can even consciously come online and reason your way through it. So oftentimes we know what we should do to pass a test, to lose weight, to be more nutritious, to hydrate, but our emotions stop us. We need both emotion and cognition to really function at our highest capacity. Our culture tends to overemphasize cognition, and so we end up not utilizing our emotion system to its fullest ability, and so this actually ends up hindering us in life. But emotions are quite powerful. When you ignore them or push your emotions away, you are left to reactivity. That's all you're left with. So neurologically, we feel, then we think, and then we act. So let me say something here about cognitive behavioral therapy interventions. So not all mental health interventions are the same. They're not all created equal. Just as firefighters, you have multiple interventions for the same problem, so do mental health professionals. The problem is when an MHP uses cognitive behavioral approaches, they're missing out on paying attention to the emotion signals and the messages that your emotions are trying to tell you. So most mental health support for firefighters currently are cognitive behavioral interventions. Typically, therapy for first responders looks like this, and I'm just going to walk you through a typical scenario. A firefighter first tries everything that they have been trained how to do, everything they already know how to do, everything their closest friends and families recommend to them. Finally, as a last resort, they will look online for a counselor, usually through your EAP system. Now, the EAP system will refer you to a few therapists that they have paneled with the insurance companies. These folks are not vetted at all, first of all, and they're especially, most importantly, not vetted as culturally competent therapists. So a firefighter makes the call to the therapist. This takes tremendous courage. It takes tremendous courage because the helper has to ask for help. That is so counterintuitive to all of us, especially first responders, especially to firefighters. And so it takes a lot of courage to even pick up that phone. If a therapist does not call you back within 24 hours or some short amount of time, the firefighter will oftentimes quit and just kind of take it in as a dead end. And internally, you will take in a message that says you have to figure this out on your own. There's no support help for you. There's no help for you. If by chance you are able to make an appointment, showing up to that appointment takes a whole nother big barrel full of courage, because then you have to face someone and look them in the eye and actually say, I, the helper, need some help. I'm hurting, or I feel broken and I need some help. So the therapist then, they may have had one or two or a handful of first responder clients. Maybe one of them's been a firefighter. They will claim that they get it because they've had a first responder clients. They'll say, yeah, I get it. My therapeutic approach, I can handle it. It's really no different than. Unfortunately, they, like a lot of our culture, a lot of people in society, get caught up in the wow of the uniform or the badge. Inadvertently, they end up becoming voyeurs. They end up becoming enamored with the idea of the job, and they're unable to see the human behind the shield, behind the badge, behind the how many bugles you have, behind the uniform. And so they miss the human that's back there. And so what this ends up doing is it ends up putting the hurting firefighter into a position where, in order to receive the help that I need, I have to put on this work mask, the same mask that I put on at work that says, I'm okay, I'm here to take care of you. And you end up switching roles right then in the office. And so rather than receiving immediately the help that you desperately need, you end up in a funny way having to take care of or tend to the therapist's interests. This is all innocent. This is all totally subliminal. No one's intending to do harm. This is ending up the result, though. If the firefighter sticks around long enough for that counselor to get over kind of the wow factor, then the therapist will often use cognitive behavioral interventions. It looks a lot like problem solving. So you guys might negotiate a sleep regimen. You might figure out how to stay hydrated, or are you journaling? Give you that idea. Hey, maybe you should create a date night with your partner at home. These strategies look good to the firefighter because you're accustomed to behavioral interventions at work. Behavioral interventions work on scene. That's a great strategic plan for scenes. And so you end up agreeing to this strategic plan to help you have a more fulfilling life and get through the pain of whatever you're working through. The problem is that these cognitive behavioral interventions depend on the hurting person to strengthen up and work themselves out of their problem. Okay? Inevitably, you'll grow weary of working at this. You'll grow weary of working in order to make yourself feel better. You'll miss a day of journaling. Life will get in the way and you'll stop going out on date nights. Something happens. Your sleep regimen gets interrupted because you change crews or your shift, or you take more OT or something. Something happens. Eventually, the intervention breaks down. It breaks down because you stop being consistent at it for whatever reason. Because you are trained that consistency over time produces positive results, you end up thinking that you have failed at therapy. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is absolutely wrong. Cognitive behavioral interventions, these specific counseling interventions, have failed you. I will say that again. Counseling interventions that are cognitive behavioral in nature have ended up failing you. They are wrong. They are short-term interventions that only deal with a part of the problem to begin with. Emotions and the signals that they're trying to send to you are trying to tell you something that's important. So without considering these messages, the therapist, the intervention, it's not looking at the whole problem. Therefore, the solution is only going to be partial. It's going to be lacking. So by even saying this, it's even hard for me to say this. It's okay for me to say this. I feel comfortable. As soon as this gets published, I'm going to piss off a lot of people. I'm going to start receiving messages from cognitive behavioral therapists all over and firefighters, and they'll tell me how great these interventions have been used. That's fine. What I'm saying is absolutely true. It's backed by loads of new recent neuroscience, specifically within the last 20 years. Cognitive behavioral interventions are shown to have lasting results up to the 12-month mark. By the way, emotionally focused therapy, attachment-based models that look at the messages that emotion signals are trying to send shows efficacy beyond the 3-year mark. Yes, I will reference this. It'll be in the podcast notes, so you can go look at the data and the research. Absolutely. My point is this. If we only utilize cognition without paying attention to the emotional signals and the messages that our emotions are trying to send to us, then we do not have the full picture. So we miss out on what our emotions are trying to tell us. And our thoughts about what to do next, will be limited. We need both emotion and cognition in order to have a full picture of anything. So, in summary, painful feelings can ground you. Anger is not always bad. We feel before we think, and we need both emotion and cognition in order to get a full picture. Thank you for joining me in correcting some of our understandings around emotion and the importance of emotion. I hope 1 or 2 tools will be effective for your tool belt. Thank you so much. Please visit my website, elpiscounseling.com, for a list of references used in today's episode. Remember, what we see, we can change, one feeling, one message, one conversation at a time. Thank you for joining me as we learn to tap into our emotion signals to protect and preserve those relationships that matter most. Be safe and be well.